Oh.
Hi, boys.
I must say, when Jamie took 20 minutes to introduce all the governors, presidents, parliamentarians for 24 years, it makes your sphincters all react. You ever had that feeling? Every time you speak? Every time I speak. And I would like for this to be a conversation between people who do what we do. Why are we here on a Saturday morning when everybody else is either sleeping in, doing the yard, or playing, having fun? And we're here working on, you're doing what? Let me tell you why I think we're here. I heard a story the other day. The guy was a Harley Davidson specialist. I mean, he could tear a Harley Davidson down and put it back together, as they used to say, with a gun. He'd do it in the dark. Terrific. And he had just taken one particular faulty Harley, and he'd taken it apart, and he'd taken the valves out, replaced the valves, cleaned up all the engine, and put it back together. He was very proud of that thing, and when he went down on the start, it purred like a sweetheart. And he noticed across the way that a surgeon had just walked in that he knew and was interested in Harleys. And he said to the surgeon, "Doc, come over, I want to show you something. Now, look at this. This thing was a piece of mess until I got it and worked it over. I took it apart, I took the heart out, and I replaced the valves, and I cleaned everything up, and look at this unit now. It's brand new. Got more life than it had ever before." He said, "Doc, why is it I make $34,000 a year replacing Harleys? You do the same thing I do, and you make $1.7 million. I read it in the paper the other day." And the doctor replied, "Try doing it with the engine running." That is why we are here. I don't know about you, I used to write all my publicity, you know, all this stuff that you just read, Jamie, I wrote. I mean, it took me years to put all those things together. Don't we write our own, do you write your own introductions? I mean, you must be honest about it. I'm not, I hope you take that in levity, but the truth is, I'm a Harley champion. I used to, you know, I always wanted to be the doctor who got $1.7 million. The truth is, I'm doing it as well as I can do it at the moment. And I think you have to do it all the time to really maybe be the doctor who does it while the engine's running. Second reason I think we're here, Barney, and I told this last week, Jamie, it's one of the most profound lessons I've ever gotten. Public television is my favorite channel. I mean, it's just terrific. Who else would give you an in-depth interview, not an interview, just an insight, just the cameras were rolling, and Warren Buffett is there, and he, by the way, I always say, if you want their attention, stand. How do you feel about that? But Warren Buffett was sitting, and so he was sitting, a tall guy next to him named Bill Gates was sitting there. And there were the Columbia Graduate School of Business, had the master's and the doctoral group there, who were, and they were having a Q&A with Warren Buffett. They were asking profound, really tough questions, and Warren Buffett was answering them in simple words with simple answers, and I felt like I could understand what he was saying. Isn't that one of the challenges we have? And Buffett, one of the guys stood up and said, "Mr. Buffett, I'm a doctoral candidate." I don't remember what he said, a doctoral or master's candidate. He said, I have a business plan, and I'm ready to go into business. And I plan to have a big business, and that's why I'm here at the Columbia School of Business. And he told Buffett just a little bit about the business, and Buffett said, "You know, I think I would be willing to spend $100,000 in return for 10% of your business stock and 10% of the profits, John. Long pause. You know, the pause is the most powerful thing. Long pause. However, he said, I will give you $250,000 if you will become a master communicator. Same deal. Just spend a few thousand Saturday mornings at the Huntersville Professional Building and work on it every day. I was thinking coming up, and I know you know this. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know, but I just think we have to talk talking, and for you to know that the same things. I've done it for 50 years, and it's the same things go through my head, and the same challenges that you have, perhaps in different. We all, you know, the same. We don't all look alike. We don't all sound alike. We don't talk alike, but we all learn that some things are really critical. What was I thinking coming up here? I forget what I'm thinking usually, and you know, how do you do when you forget where you are? You say, John, where was I? What was I telling you? Well, I was thinking coming up here of some application of that whole story. But anyway, here's the notes that I've gone back and looked at. Jamie and John, you were there. You were there. I know that at the meeting in 2002. I went back and looked at my notes. And first of all, speaking of your sphincters, you know, whatever they do, contract or expand or whatever they do. I thought, what can I say to these Toastmasters? They've spent as much time as I have working on this, and how can I be a, you know, I said you get the Leadership and Communications Award, and except rather in place of a fee, and I thought that was and so I better work hard for this award. Well, you know that's true. But I've worked, my largest house was $91,000 at the Georgia Dome. And George H.W. Bush spoke for 20 minutes and he got $100,000. And I spoke for an hour and I got a Communications and Leadership Award. Well, not exactly that. And I thought, what can I say to these people? So anyway, I thought, here, what questions would they ask? I know I have I saw on your schedule, you said 10:15, but
with a little bit of Q&A.
Yeah, okay, all right. Let me just tell you real quickly, kind of summarize some of the things that I talked about. I thought, if they asked me, what was the one thing you teach, if you could only teach one thing to your people? By the way, we've had a school for 32 years now. It was not 1980, it was 1980 when it all started. I guess we probably turned that around on the website or something. And if I could only teach one thing, what would you teach? What would you teach? If you could only teach one thing, Ron, what would you teach?
How to make each day better.
If I only teach one, well, let me just give you my answer. I would teach passion. You say, well, how do you teach passion? I don't know if you can teach passion. I don't know that I could even come close to teaching passion, but I know it when I see it and I feel it. And my definition, passion is adding heat and color to dispassionate things. John Wesley founded the Methodist Church. Wesley, someone said to Wesley, you left the Church of England, went to the streets, and you began to preach in the streets, and nobody was there to begin with, and now thousands come. How did you do it? And John Wesley said, simple. Every morning I just set John Wesley on fire, and the people come to watch and hear John Wesley burn. A science teacher in the school, and he wrote the book. He wrote the book we studied from. The university bought the book and taught it to all the students. Everybody had to have that course. And I would go to sleep within 5 minutes of getting to the course. Consequently, old big deal, took that course more than once. I was not a graduating member of the Beta Club or whatever that Phi Beta Kappa was. And it was tough. I mean, he was brilliant. And yet, years later, watching Nova. You ever watch Nova on television? It's one of my great, all my favorite programs are on public television. Nova is fabulous. And Nova had a guy named Dr. Carl Sagan he was an astrophysicist. And he knew about the same thing my science teacher in college knew, but he talked about the mysteries of the universe. And I thought, passion is the difference. Storytelling is the difference. Adding heat and color to what you're doing. Oh, excuse me, I'm not a left-brainer. Left-brainers are all about, I wish we had left-brainers are all about content. Right-brainers too often are all about show business, you know. Well, guess which side of the ledger I'm on. So I have to work on my content, but without the right brain side, the creative side, our mileage is not very good. Our performance, the Harley's not working very well. The doctor isn't saving many lives. So we teach messenger skills. But we also coach. When we coach, do private coaching, we work on content with them, obviously. Passion. If I can only teach one thing, passion. What does passion look like? Ziegler, jumping up and down, telling funny stories, getting down on his knees, selling you about $200 worth of product. Some of the greatest passion spoken on a pillow, in a whisper, or just in a look. And so passion, we have thousands and thousands of students from everywhere, and yet none of them look like me, act like me. None of them look like our instructors. Well, we've done a good job. They're authentic. They're themselves. And so I would say to every one of us, don't try to be like the person on your left or right. Try to learn from them, but be you at your very best. We use that teaching model that when people come to us, just as when you all started Toastmasters, you felt strange and uncomfortable, and you were very uncomfortable if they called your name. Right? 7 clubs you started. Show off.
Some of here have started more.
Really? Wow. That's amazing. Because you've got the passion for the. Well, I could go passion all morning long. The second thing that I told you in that workshop was something that we all know. Sometimes our heads grow bigger than our bodies. Did you ever notice that? And we think, I'm here, I'm ready to relieve you. Oh, big deal is here. When you're quiet, I will proceed. Now, don't tell me that you haven't, excuse me, I can't tell you about you. I have felt that way too many times in my life. And what I have learned, and it's an humbling experience, is it ain't about you to begin with, boy. Not about the doctor, it's about the patient. Not about the teacher, it's about the student. Not about the salesperson, it's about the customer. Not about the speaker, it's about the audience. Correct. You are here to honor the audience and to furnish them. So if it's not about you, what's the skill we have to think about, we have to work on? I believe if it were reading, writing, listening, and speaking, listening would be the first among equals, more so than this skill. What would you say? Toughest for me to learn. I mean, it's adaptive behavior when I listen, and yet I think I've learned that it's so important. It's the first thing I try to do. Try not to interrupt. So if it's not about you, what is the tool? The tool is listening, and I like to use an acronym that Manny Stiles, not my acronym, Manny Stiles, who's head of the Minnesota University Communications Department for many years. Dr. commanding style. He used the acronym ASK, A-S-K. A is for having an attitude of wanting to listen. Wanting to listen. I remember we have a group called Speakers Roundtable, there are 20 of us, and I've been there so long, I'm now emeritus. Which is, I guess that's the stumble before the fall, isn't it? I'm emeritus. And Bill Backrack was running our program, Bill Backrack. And Backrack said two things. He said, one, check your egos at the door. Second thing he said, this is really profound. He said, give yourself permission not to say those things you just have to say. He cut down the length of the meeting by days. Oh yeah, I just got to say this. So listen, acronym. Have an attitude of wanting to listen. Second, have the skills. Learn the skills. Don't interrupt. Don't use those, what we call roadblocks. I don't know what you call them. Oh, we've done that before. Oh, you're not going to say that. Oh, should I be ashamed of myself? All of those things that stop the conversation. What we want to do is take the light off of us and put it on our audience. What we want to do is take the light off of self and put it on the other person. Listening and making them, tell me about you. Tell me about your business. What's the first job you ever had? Tell me about your spouse and your family, and tell me what keeps you up at night, and whatever those questions are that engage the other person's head. And Harvey McKay says it best, and I can't remember, Swim with the Sharks. He has that 80 or 90 or 70 questionnaire. Listen to all of the stories I have, and we don't have time for stories, but three old guys are they're retired, and they're looking a lot like some of you gonna look, and they're sitting on the bench there waiting to start their golf game. One of them said, "Sure is windy today." The second guy said, "No, it's Thursday." Third guy said, "Me too. Let's go have a beer." and I could probably do some more listening stories, but the third thing we talked about. That be perfect is an imperfect objective. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna be perfect. I wanted to be a perfect for my children, my children certainly as a father. I want to be perfect for my parents. I want to be perfect for my teachers. I want to be perfect for my preacher. You? And so if you try to be perfect, it's almost paralyzing. You're afraid to try something. You're going to say, man, the judging committee is going to say he didn't wear a tie, or he's too old, or he didn't stand up tall, or whatever. And so number one, we give somebody else permission to control our lives, but more important, it's not be perfect, it's be effective, John. That's what I learned in Ardell County. Studied so. Be perfect is an imperfect objective. We try to kill to be perfect in all the people that come to our classes. And you say, well, what are you doing? Lowering the standards? I said, no, we're increasing the ceiling. Because if you lower if you think of it as lowering the bar, it's not productive. But if you say, be your best, do a blue ribbon presentation, seek excellence in everything you do, and just, that's the place of perfection. So be perfect is an imperfect objective. One of the examples I used, and I told you this story last week too, because it's so powerful. One of the most important communication skills I ever experienced and learned was from a guy who was an incredible salesperson. His name is Kurt Kimball. He's an he's an executive vice president at the Compass Group. If you're familiar with Compass, they sell food, sell millions of meals every morning and night. You go get some Compass, and they do billions of dollars worth of sales. And the first time I met Kurt, I was making a sales call, and he said, when I came here, we were closing 14% of sales. In other words, make 100 presentations to sell 14. And I would have taken that, I could get a gig, I get 13 gigs or 14 gigs. in 100, that wouldn't be bad. He said, but we have one rule we live by, and if you don't live by the rule, you're out. If you live by the rule, you're gonna close upwards of 70% of your presentation. Would you like to know what that rule is? Write it down. If you don't show, here's the rule. He said to all the people that work for that and say, if you don't show up for the preparation and the practice, I mean, how many times do we have to tell Toastmasters that? Don't show up for the presentation. I mean, it's simple. We know all this stuff, but doing it is another thing. That's why I made a point earlier that I worked as hard on this one as I worked on the one for, large, big checks and big audiences. If you don't show up for the preparation, we lost Steve Jobs this year. Steve Jobs said it took him up to 6 months to prepare his presentation. But who was the icon? Who changed the world more than Steve Jobs in his short life? Nobody. Nobody made the Arab Spring possible through the use of these things. And he not only put this together, he became the greatest presenter on stage, and we all wanted to be like Steve Jobs. And it takes preparation. Preparation. And practice, practice, practice. I remember the story of Ben Hogan. Ben Hogan was 135 pounds. He was a golfer years ago, but he was the greatest golfer of his time, and maybe the greatest golfer of all times. Who knows? But he was terrific. And there's a practice in professional golf. If you're a golfer in Huntersville and I'm a golfer in Charlotte, and you come to Charlotte, want a lesson, I'm honored bound to give you a lesson. If I come to Huntersville and the practice we just as Toastmasters do, helping each other. And a young fellow called Ben Hogan up in his hometown of Fort Worth, said, I'm just passing through town, Mr. Hogan, my game's not exactly what it ought to be. I've always wanted to be like you. I wonder if I could stop by for a lesson. And Ben Hogan is reported to have replied, I wasn't there. He said, don't bother to come by. Just buy yourself a clock and set it for dawn. And get up and hit the ball till nightfall. And continue to do so. Reset the clock for dawn. Get up and hit the ball till nightfall. Reset the clock for dawn. You get the story. And call me back in about 5 years. Why are we here on a Saturday morning? We're here to get our game on. We're here to learn from others. I read that Sir Laurence Olivier was still taking acting and voice lessons the year he died. He came to Saturday morning meetings. And comedians getting their timing. We get people, our clients are usually very large companies, because once you sell, make that sale, then you get both depth and breadth, and it's so that's where most of our customers come from. And we if we have to tell one of them in 50 to slow down, to speed up, we have to tell the other 49 to slow down. It's timing. And yesterday, day before yesterday, I heard, and I'm going to use a name in here, Jennifer Wells, who wrote The Glass Castle. She wrote 2 wonderful books. I was there for Urban Ministries. Urban Ministries raises funds for the neediest of all. And she was terrific, but she spoke so fast that my hearing aid heated up. And I heard about half of her talk. And what that lady needed, she has everything that all of us have, except she's too fast. And so if we could, just 1 hour of coaching would help her to be incredibly more powerful in her presentation. Isn't it amazing how, if we are open and look at each other as mirrors who can give us that good, honest feedback. And by the way, I have not asked for good, honest feedback after this is over. and I will leave. No, I'd be fine. So be perfect is an imperfect objective. Fourth thing, how much time do we have? John, are you keeping time?
Well, I was supposed to, but I think we have about seven, based on this, we have about 7 or 8 minutes.
7 or 8 minutes. All right, let me just give you this one, and I'll finish with this. Then we'll do some Q&A if you'd like, and if you'd like a model of Q&A that we use, I'll be happy to give you that. And then I'll close. Okay. How did I term this? Intimacy is not just Victoria's Secret, I think is the way I used it. Intimacy is not just Victoria's Secret. And if we could only teach 2 things, this would be the answer I would give. I would say that we can use our eyes more effectively than we do. And for you, that's old news. But how many speakers do you see who walk up and down and they're always moving and they're glancing out or they're looking away and they're performing, but they're not creating what I think of as intimacy. Just, I want you to, when we leave, I want each of you to say, just had a conversation with the guy, and I hope you remember the name, the boy. And that's intimacy. Intimacy comes also in character and understanding and knowing each other, and trust and standards and that sort of thing. But our eyes do it so quickly. My mother could herd cattle, never say a word. She was terrific. She was my 4th grade teacher, best teacher I ever had in my life, and she never had a discipline problem. She could do it with us, but she could also take a student, Johnny, that had never had much love at home, and love that child to death with her eyes. Just like that. So anyway, the way we use our eyes. Let me just tell you one experience. Pat and I, and we were about 40 of us, 20 speakers maybe, and 20 spouses, and maybe sometimes both of the husbands and wives were speaking. But we went to the White House, and we met Bill Clinton, his first term. And Clinton spent 20 minutes with us, and he had at least a half a minute with each one of us, 40 of us. And he didn't say 2 words. He would just, and he didn't look at Bob, he didn't look at Jamie, he just looked at John. John said, when's this dude gonna start looking at somebody else? Getting uncomfortable. He didn't do that stare. It's just that, as we know, there's a difference in a stare and just a soft eye contact. But he would look at each of us, and we would tell him our stories. And when we left that meeting in the White House, we got back on the bus and headed back to our hotel. And every one of us either did this figuratively, and you may have heard me tell this, and get this example, or we actually did it. We pressed that little button on our seats, and we reclined the seat way back, and we put our hands behind our head, and we said, the dude liked me best. And he certainly didn't do it with anything he said. But hands down, he's the best communicator I've ever seen, and ever observed. Now, this has nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with standards, everything to do with an incredibly powerful, bright communicator. So anyway, I've got a lot more I'd like to say that I rehearsed on the way and rehearsed last night and rehearsed before that, and you say, pitiful. And I've got to close, but I'd like to just now give you just a couple of ideas on Q&A, and you say we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. Let's see if we got some Q&A real quick. We just use this simple model. We call it the REACT model. First, we request questions. We always say, be sure to come back and make a second close after that, and I'm sure you teach that too. In other words, sometimes Q&A can kind of whine, take all the energy out of the room, so you come back and close the thing again. So, one, request, the REACT, REACT, that's it. We request questions. Then you use your empathy, eyes, and to listen to that person speak. Use your eyes to listen, eyes and ears and empathy. Third is, let's see, we then use active listening skills by not interrupting and then repeating the question that they ask. Instead of just answering the question, we repeat the question for everyone so that everyone knows the question we're asking. It's particularly important if you're taping something and someone asks a question off the mic, and then you know the rest of the thing. The C would be consider, stop, honor the question, rather than to say that's a great question. And you've told the person before you, if you didn't say that, you didn't have a very good question. And you're telling the next guy, if you don't say that, that's not a very good question. So rather than use a term like great question, use an answer, something like this. Thank you for that question. But consider it. Clinton. Here's Clinton. And by the way, he'd have nothing between you. He'd be this way. And he'd tilt his head and he'd lean in. All listening skills. And then he would listen. And so the react, consider the question. Let's see if I can answer that. And then answer. And you know, you don't be frightened about not having the right answer. If you don't, there are about 4 or 5 things you can do, which you already know. If you want to know, I'll tell you after the meeting. So, and instead of saying, now, does anyone have a question? Try it this way. What questions have you? And then if you don't ask me a question right away, I will say, well, one of the questions I'm frequently asked, you know that whole procedure. One of the questions I'm frequently asked, and then you ask the question. And by that time, people are timid about raising their hands and asking questions. But if you say, here's a question I'm asked, you answer the question, then the hands start going up. And so that manages, just a good way to manage a Q&A session. Then you come back and repeat your close, or do a second close after the question. Do you have any questions? What questions have you?
Yeah, I missed it. What is the K in ask?
Well, I was hoping you'd ask that. Have knowledge of the other person's business. Read the paper every day. That's why reading and some television are just terrific to be informed. So have knowledge, obviously, of the day's events and what's going on, so you can carry on a good conversation. What's your questions, please?
For the Q&A, you said react. The first question is empathy, active listening, consider the question, but I didn't get the T.
T. T. What do I? Talk. We just teach that. It's been a while since I've taught the react on it. Yes?
I am probably next to Jamie, the next person that uses PowerPoint a lot.
You use a lot of PowerPoint.
I noticed that you only have one slide in your very long speech today. Do you find that you
Did it
use...
seem long and
Very informative. I believe wholeheartedly in research and practice and being prepared. But I'm just questioning, since you've had a very lengthy career in public speaking and communication, and just a wide variety of audiences that you speak to, do you see that that's, do you think PowerPoint is being overused now, or could be used better?
But that's not the reason I didn't use it. When I began, I had to pay $50 a slide. First of all, nobody used slides when I began. We had candles, you know. but when I started using slides as backup and by the way, slides are support. PowerPoint is support. Support goes on the left, your left, audience is right. You stand over here. This is the most powerful place. This is the most powerful place. Second most powerful place is stage right. Least powerful place is stage left. And so the reason being is because we read left to right. We're just trained to do that. So I did use PowerPoint because we were working on Messenger. I'm working on the Messenger, and PowerPoint is support. I wasn't talking about support today. I think I've probably used it all, Bernie.
Ty, we seem to be having a problem with the youth of today versus the middle-aged person that's coming for a career professional move. In your schools, how are you addressing, because I think you use something that Zig uses and the most powerful speakers use, and that's storytelling. That's the most powerful thing we've got. The kids don't care about those stories anymore. It seems like they're more concerned about making money than they are being passionate. What do you do in your school?
Well, I'm not convinced that what you just said is correct. I think its attention span is short, but you still need to entertain and add that color and heat. And so stories, in my view, are the most powerful way to do it. Example, Bill Whitley is an adjunct professor in our company. And Bill has written a book, how to create your own customer attraction story. It's a storytelling workshop. And we've done it probably for several hundred Pfizer companies, one of our big clients, Pfizer doctors and salespeople. And I would say it's the most powerful course we have. It's just really powerful. So I would be surprised if you can't adapt that. I mean, I'm not trying to mumble through your question. We haven't found that to be true.
If I could add to that, because there's a.
Yeah, I'm here to learn too.
Yeah, there's research out there from Dr. Donna Beagle, and she talks about the different types of learners out there. She
Oh,
talks
yeah.
about the print culture communicator versus the oral culture communicator. And so many more of our folks these days are what they call oral culture communicators, and they really are driven towards the story. You know, the powerful, impactful Oprah Winfrey type moments that you can have with people really draw those people in as learners, and it makes impactful behavior change with those individuals versus all of us collegiate book learners. We're really not as driven to the story as a lot of those frontline people that we try to connect with.
Thank you. Did you like my answer?
Yeah. Good deal.
And thank you.
I hate to interrupt, but we.
Time it, we're over. I'm not even do my close.
Yeah, you
Yes,
gotta do-
please do.
you do
My close is 30 seconds, and it works like a charm. I close with this because it's powerful, and when it fits, I use it. James Michener, great writer. My brother was a doctor in Statesville, and he was 40 years there, and I never went to it as a professional. I just never went to it. Of course, the dude was a gynecologist. This was on his wall. It said, "The masters in the art of living." Maybe I might steal a word. The masters in the art of communication spend little time decide. They make no distinction between their labor and their leisure, their careers and their cause, their work, their play, their minds, their bodies, their information, their recreation, their love, and their religion. They hardly know which is which. They simply pursue their vision of excellence at whatever they do, leaving others to decide whether they are working or playing. To them, they're always doing both. Why are we here on a Saturday morning? I'm convinced we're in the right place. Fun to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And just if I could have you come up for just another second, Ty. You are here on Saturday morning, and you have shared with us so much knowledge, so much wisdom, and the most valuable thing that you have is your time. And we do thank you so
Well,
much
thank you so much,
for your
Jamie.
time.
Pat says always save the wrapping paper and the bag, so I'll
That's
take it
all there
all
is.
straight
That's-
up.
Us for our entire
I'd like to.
that we would love for you to be here.
I must say that I got an email this morning, when I got up, the first thing I checked was And I'm involved with Elon Homes for Children, which is the old boys town in North Carolina. And one of our earliest families that we took in, one of the youngsters is back in town, and he's only gonna be here a short while. So if my phone rings, it may be him, and I will, it's on silent, I'll just, but, I may have to leave, but that's, would be the only reason.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for everything you've shared with us this morning.